So what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt, and you're watching Demo Reel. And today, we're going to be talking all about indie film festivals. And I am super excited today because I'm sitting here with Don and Katha Cato, the head honchos of the Queen's World Film Festival. Guys, how are you doing today?
I'm great. We're great.
Doing great. It's a good day.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks
Hey,
for having us.
thank you. I really appreciate this. Now, to start off, could you guys just tell us a little bit about the Queen's World Film Festival and what you guys are all about?
Sure. Well, you're essentially looking at the Queen's World Film Festival. I'm the executive director, and he's the artistic director. We'll tell you a little bit about that. But it's a multi-day, multi-venue, international film festival that is discovering wonderful, challenging, exciting films from all around the world and around the corner. Because as you know, there's a thriving film community in Queens.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows of that in Brooklyn and in Manhattan, but also in the Bronx and Staten Island. And we pride ourselves in bringing films from all over the world and pairing them with great films from here, local films from Queens. And we're going March 15th through the 25th in 2018. It's our 8th year. We feel that's big for some reason.
That is pretty big, honestly.
It is big.
Like well, honestly, these days, anything running for 8 years is big.
Yes, we're excited. So I'm the executive director, and I handle all the paperwork and the scheduling, etc. And Don, you are?
I am the artistic director of the Queen's World Film Festival, and what my responsibilities are is the aesthetic of the festival, which includes going through and choosing the films, themes, ideas, content, and programming, and then ultimately projection.
Awesome. And as people who are as steeped in the film festival world as you guys are, what role do you think they play in the independent film industry and the film industry, Hollywood, whatever, what have you, as a whole?
Well, you take it.
Well,
I'll
film festivals are a place where independent films can be screened and be seen on a large screen.
Mm-hmm.
In most cases, film festivals do have large screens.
Right.
And it's very difficult, as you probably are aware, and many people out there, it's difficult to find a big screen that will play your film.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. With the advent of the smaller screens and everything else, YouTube, it's still important to get your film seen in front of a bunch of civilians.
Right.
Not just your friends and the crew,
Yeah.
and the neighbors and your uncle,
Mm-hmm.
and the dentist. It's important.
or
less-
the financier, dentist financier.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
We do know.
Yeah.
It's very important. So it's good to have the civilians react and to be with other filmmakers and in a place where it's conducive for films to be seen and people to talk about them. That's just not there.
You know, the studios are creating events around their films, and they're very noisy and they're big, and now you can go to someplace for specific sound, you go to someplace for specific size of screen, etc. And film festivals create events around your films also, but on a different level. We're creating a community around your film. And at our festival, the way Don programs, it's by thematic unit.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives each block a provocative name, and he groups these films together that might be exploring the same ideas. You could have an animation from Germany, and a short narrative from Spain, a short narrative from Corona, and then some expressionistic experimental work from Nairobi. And they're all might be dealing with the same idea, and he groups them together, and then we can create community around that by niche marketing and making sure that the people who are interested in your theme is going to be able to find you. At an indie film festival, you know, first thing people look are like, where are the stars? And well, at indie festivals, there are a lot of stars. The stars are the films. So the reason we group them thematically also is that the civilian can find a block of film that speaks to them, and guaranteed then that they're going to find something that they should be seeing, which then connects that filmmaker, that Corona filmmaker, to people around the world, the filmmakers from around the world, as well as an audience here in Queens that he'll need to follow and that he needs or she needs to cultivate. So the role we play is we bring people together in this time-honored fashion to see these indie films.
Mm-hmm.
And of note, over time, because we're now in our 8th year, last year and in year 6, we now have had people coming back to the festival because they have discovered this thematic idea and they actually trust us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very big and important thing for us, the festival, but it's also for filmmakers to realize that if we put you in a certain block, and you might see a mix of genres, but the idea or theme behind that same block is the same, they'll go, let's give it a shot, and they'll go.
So then each block has a Facebook page. With Facebook, I just feel like the world is right there all the time, and that's astounding to me. But then I can connect you. If you have a film at our festival, you're going to have a Facebook event page that's going to connect you with other people, and then long after our festival, those other filmmakers are going to be your colleagues from around the world. So if you want to shoot something, or if they remember, this guy's got the same sensibility I do, maybe he'd want to come over and shoot something with us. That's really exciting to us also. We had the guys from LA, the Matarisi brothers, with the guy who did The Gathering Swine.
Yep.
Who did, oh, Lord mercy, Brian
Smolinski. Brian Smolinski.
So in our first year, Brian and Rakesh Chadre never even met each other. They screened in the same block. 6 years later, Brian Smolinski had a film with us, and Rakesh came to see it. And to see them standing there, and they both now have gray hair. 6 years later, what can happen? And to see them so engaged in this conversation, these two guys who met in Jackson Heights in 2011, because their films screened together, now are colleagues, international colleagues. And that's just, what a privilege to be part of that.
And the film that she's talking about
Exactly.
is called The Eclipse of Terregna, which was the story about an eclipse that could be seen perfectly in Terregna. It's about a grandfather who's losing his sight, and he teaches his grandson science, and it's also a bonding moment between them, and it happens around this eclipse.
Oh, I can see why that would get two people talking. That sounds like a beautiful film.
It is a beautiful film. As the grandfather loses his sight, the eclipse comes closer. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful film.
And I love stories like that, of like people coming together and like thinking, oh, we need to make something, and then them doing it. And as you just illustrated, like that to me I think is the spirit of indie film festivals. Just coming together for a mutual love of the art form of film and just seeing what more can be done.
It's really exciting to us on opening night or the week before when we do the trailer party, when we're screening all the trailers, and you see these filmmakers really start to create these relationships. And you feel that you're transcending. This is not just a festival. It's not something where we're just going to throw a bunch of images up on the screen and see what sticks.
Right.
This is really lovingly curated. Sometimes at 4 o'clock in the morning, when he's screening, he comes in and he'll just say, "I just saw a piece of art," and it's beautiful. And I'm like, "That's awesome, Don. I'll talk to you about it in the morning." And it's just, then I'll come in here and, his position like this when he's looking at films, and he's teary. And then it breaks his heart when we're going through 500-600 films, and you can only take 100. And that gets to be tough moments.
Yeah, it is.
It comes down to the ideas. Are the ideas going to really stand? If you have 3 or 4 films that are dealing with the same ideas, who exploited their materials, who stayed true to their idea, and Don has something that he talks about a lot, is that he wants to see a film that has an earned ending, whether it makes you feel good or not. Why don't you talk a little bit more about that earned ending?
Well, we're so conditioned to the industrial film, which is supposed to lead us to a happy ending. So, and that's kind of like popcorn or anything else, that you want more.
Right.
And that's all very good. We need those kinds of happy ending films. But the independent world, it's not necessarily following the first act, second act, third act.
Right.
Sometimes you want to mix them up. Maybe you've got 5 acts, maybe you've got 1 act. But the point is that how your story is told, how it's done, and how that leads to the ending, whatever it might be, leaves you with a different feeling. But it should be satisfactory if all of the parts are earned and add up to whatever conclusion you've come to. And so those are really treats because they're just a little bit out of the norm. It doesn't mean it's a down ending.
Right.
It just means that the story has earned this point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's we like that. We do, because what it is you've taken a stand, you've worked your way through this thing, you've crafted it in such a way. Is that okay? I didn't see that coming, and it's good. I'm with it.
So, would you say this idea of earned ending, is that like your number one criteria for picking the films for your festival?
Well, it's one. I mean, it is one. We because otherwise you can start to. We've watched so many movies over 8 years.
Of course.
That you can start to see where they're heading.
Mm-hmm.
The key there is, well, okay, maybe it takes a turn or goes sideways. Not sideways, meaning anything negative, but just things start to go, or the character becomes unraveled, or other things happen to them that you're unexpected and sometimes negative. I mean, it could end up the guy turns into a bad guy or a bad woman, but if it's earned, okay. So that's all right with us. But that is something I believe in, an earned ending.
I think Don is really interested in craftsmanship.
Oh, absolutely.
Very much. You know, it's hard to go to a movie with him. He mutters and he'll turn to me, "That was beautiful." You know, I'm much more of a popcorner. You know, I do like to go to something that I feel good when I leave. If I'm going to spend that much money at a commercial film. But when I go to see the blocks that he's curated, it's really amazing to me, because at some festivals you'll see, you know, this film starts at 9, and if it's an 11-minute film, the next film starts at 9:11, and it just keeps stacking all day long. And he lovingly creates an experience, and over and over and over and over. At the last festival, we had 54 blocks. And that's a lot of gut wrenching, really reaching down. And then each one has a host, and then each one has a provocative title so that we can market to the right people. And he really kind of programs the festival out like a feature film. He really is driving everybody so that last day of the festival, they're reaching a conclusion about their own work and the experience. And it's really kind of draining and emotional for us. That last day, and when you see all the filmmakers, and their faces have changed. When they on that first day, you know, they want to make sure that everybody knows who they are, and they pitch and they pitch and they pitch. And on that last day, you see a room of 100 colleagues, and they're sitting and they're talking, and they've seen each other's work, and it's just a lucky position to be in for us.
Could you give a little bit of an idea of what the selection process is like? You know, step by step. You know, you know, how do you get them? Do they go straight to you? Do they go through a committee? You know, give us a little bit.
Well, I'll do it on my end. What happens is that once Katha can deal with the administrative aspect, but once they're in our spreadsheets, then there's myself and several other people who are on the selection committee, and we look at each film, and we go through and watch all the way through, no matter how long they might be. And then we score them on a scale of 1 to 10. And we also then write in our comments, and I'm looking specifically, and I ask them, are there emotional moments that really stand out? Please make note of any outstanding performance or something that really stands out, the cinematography, the directing, the writing. Make a note of that, and just a brief note on what the story is as quickly as possible, because when you go back through all these films in December, you know, 9.5 really scored well, but what's it about? What's in it? What's going on? And I need, those notes are so very important. And the other thing is too, is I look at the scores, and for example, if we see something that scored a 4 from one particular individual, and I looked at it and it was a 9, then I'm going to go, oh, there's something going on here. This is what I like. So we've got some polarization happening. Or it could be the other way around. I gave it a 4 and somebody else gave it a 9. And then I still have to look at it and say, well, what's going on here? Because this is polarizing. Maybe there's something going on here this person didn't like, but I find it to be, oh my God, this is really challenging. So we'll get the same kind of reaction perhaps from the audience. It'll go like, no, yes, no, whatever. That's exciting. And so that's where we go. We go through all of that process, and then we end up looking at the end of choosing the ones that seem to be that are well crafted and that follow through on being true to their own idea.
So before we get there, everybody submits through the usual suspects within the industry, and they go to our website. It directs them to whichever one of them, Film Freeway, Without a Box, and there's others for the Iranian filmmakers and some of the European filmmakers, etc. And then when they come through on those platforms, then I start logging them into a spreadsheet. And I'm keeping an eye on making sure that everybody's keeping abreast of things. Right now, we're at 70 some odd. We've only been open for a month. We're going to go through December, and it's clipping right along. And people are keeping abreast. And then on this Tuesday, just to kind of shake things up, we're having the screening committee over, and I think everybody should share with everybody else their favorite, their least favorite, and then we should all see together some that we haven't seen yet.
Right.
It's very hard to watch all the films. I'm going to be honest. There are times when I wish that he would not go all the way through with the film. I mean, you can tell. You get 20 or 30 minutes into it, and if the sound is awful and atrocious, etc. But Don always says, "What if that's a choice? What if that's a choice?" And I missed it, and I'm the only guy on the planet who missed it. And I say, okay, and I have asked him, I said, was there the great reveal that the sound issues were a design ploy? That hasn't really been the case now. But he's a filmmaker, and I think that's karmically what you're doing also, is that you don't want to be the guy who doesn't watch the person's film. And I applaud that, but it takes a lot out of you. It takes a lot out of He needs a lot of repairing in December and January. Because these are emotional, personal films.
Yeah,
Definitely.
When watching these films, it's always interesting. Well, at least I think it's interesting.
Right.
A lot of times, I'll see these incredible credits, booming, amazingly constructed credits, and then the movie starts and just drops off. And what happens is what's happening is you can totally control with technology every little nuance of that credit. And then the movie starts, and you've got all these other parts out there. You have actors, and sound, and background, and everything else, and all of a sudden, that emotion and that impact with the boom, boom sounds and all that, it's like, just drops off. And I go, oh gosh, that's too bad. It should have just simply said, John's film. So it's always interesting to go, wow, okay, here we go. Let's see if it holds up to the credits. And that's just the first, 10 seconds.
Right.
We send out the letters to the filmmakers who are not in first, and we kind of let that, because remember, this is all over the world, and that's a lot of hurtedness that's going on, and people need my undivided attention when they email back.
Right.
And they want to vent, or they want to see their scores, etc. So then we let that settle, and then we let the people know who are in, because then that also causes a lot of stuff on social media, and that's hard to see as a person whose film didn't get in. So we need people to get a little scar tissue before that happens, and it's a hard position to be a person who's in a position to say your art is not going to be screened. We try not to say your art is not good. It's just unfortunately we're not going to screen it. It's my least favorite thing of the whole deal. If I could look ahead 10 years from now, we would be able to have opportunities for people who had great ideas, but who the craftsmanship is not there.
Right.
Have some kind of works in progress situation to cultivate and develop young people. But right now, we're building something that has to be commercially sustainable. The audience has to trust him. And the filmmakers have to trust them. And they have to feel that their film is going to be screened next to a film that is the same level, if not better. We want to screen this on the best equipment possible. We're screening at the Museum of the Moving Image, which doesn't get much prettier than that. Pretty images. And then at the historical Kaufman Astoria Studios, which is good images also, because we retrofit that space ourselves. So we want people to feel really thrilled about screening with us.
Right.
And we want it to be competitive. We want you to feel, in 4 or 5 years, we want people to say, did you get into Queens? Did you get in? Or like, oh, I saw your film at Queens. and that needs to mean something.
Yeah, projectionist is very important. It's ultimately one of the most important aspects of films. Is that what happens when it finally gets to the moment before the light goes on that screen? And many film festivals, and we've been to some in the past ourselves, where that moment is a little lumpy, shall we say?
Same, yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Things happen.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, the projectionist, I mean, all those things, and I know how important it is because we get notes from filmmakers. I mean, commercial filmmakers from Wes Anderson, everyone else sends out specific informations about how many lumens and the shape of the image, etc., and so on, how important projection is. And it is important, and it's the last person who touches your movie. So projection to us is
everything.
It's everything, and we put a lot of money into that because that's what it's all about, is that final experience. We don't want to have anything go wrong with that image. We want it to be as bright and as crisp as intended,
Or as dark.
And crapped up as the
As you
filmmaker
intended.
wanted it.
Right. So we hit on 55 times at that last festival. That's 55 little mini heart palpitations right here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it boils down, that whole life of that film boils down to that moment. It has to play, and it has to play beautifully, and there can never be a glitch. And you know, if you're doing a short block and you've got 6 filmmakers there, you've also got 6 heartbeats that are just going against these people's rib cages, and you can feel them when they shake your hand. They come in and they're looking at you with that look like, please tell me everything's okay. And they all want to talk to the projectionists. They all want to see their image beforehand. We just can't do that. So we have to, that's where the number one focus for us is the person who is programming the blocks, literally putting it into the drives, and the person who is retrofitting that space, and the person who is hitting on.
Yeah. And
those moments are huge.
So we use union projectionists just because they have experience.
Right.
And we try to make the most of that particular moment with the best equipment available.
Even when we're screening at MOMI, you know, we call and just say, is everything okay? And he's always got extra drives on him. You just have to. And you know, I've seen you go running. You know, he's running. He's making sure he's got the drives on him. And, you know, I just take a deep breath and look the other way and know that whatever is up, he's going to solve it. He's going to solve it.
Because you also have those moments where filmmakers will want to, we
No.
can play this.
Don't do that to me. Please don't do
Give this
that.
to the projectionist? No.
We did it once, and it was a huge disappointment for that filmmaker, and it broke that filmmaker's heart. The image of that film, I don't want to say it because I don't want to bring it up again, but we accepted work at the last minute. We handed it off at MOMI, and it was the worst screening that filmmaker's ever had.
So listen, independent filmmakers, do not give the projectionists, the film directors, any work last minute.
No.
Just please don't do it.
Right.
Please don't do it.
The audience is not going to know the difference between that slight little moment that you changed 3 nights ago. Let it stand. It's worth it because the way equipment is now and the way heat is and the way humidity is, it just takes a slight thing for incompatibility. And then your film doesn't play.
Yeah.
And what's worse, the new version not playing well or the old version playing beautifully.
Right.
And you know, we're here to protect you. We're not going to put you. We're not going to hang you out to dry.
No,
Gotcha.
No way. It's too much love everywhere. The work and love, but from the filmmaker, from us, and then ultimately the audience to have a great experience.
Of course. So, if you guys had any advice to any independent filmmakers who want to get their films into festivals, want to put it through the festival circuit, what would it be?
You want to do admin first or aesthetic first?
Oh,
Well, do your research. There's over 10,000 film festivals on this planet. and do your research and find the ones that really speak to you.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe do that about 6 months before you're really getting ready to do it.
Right.
So that when you're out there fundraising, you put a little money aside for the festival life of your film.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to ask for a waiver, the email that goes out should really tell me why your film is perfect to play with us.
Mm-hmm.
And please don't tell us that it's a labor of love. Every film, every piece of art is a labor of love. Whether you spend $50 million on it or not, somewhere somebody loves it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the person who's driving it, really. So they're all labors of love. Don't tell us that you've already spent all your money submitting to other festivals. That's kind of hurtful. And then, once you've submitted, make sure that there is a cover letter that lets us know that you're just not blindly hitting enter. That there's a reason you feel that you should play at the Queens World Film Festival.
Mm-hmm.
Because those are people we want to work with. People who feel like, that's a perfect festival for us. Mm-hmm. Once you get in, read all the emails. Don't ask a question.
Through.
That's right, until you've read every email all the way through. And then don't get drunk at the festival. Don't be the filmmaker that everybody has to say, wow, did you see her last night? Did you see him last night? That was totally embarrassing. Because you're just not going to outrun that impression.
Mm.
Don't get drunk with the volunteers. Don't get drunk. Don't be sloppy. Everybody knows that you're there to network. Everybody knows that.
Mm-hmm.
So don't pitch too hard. Come in and understand that this is something that's going to celebrate everybody's work, and there's several days, and that it's an experience to be experienced. Those are mine.
Absolutely.
What do you got?
Don?
From a filmmaker standpoint, do your homework about the festival.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the films that are there, and when you get there, and obviously we're all there to pitch something. Don't go pitch crazy. What you want to do is you want to perhaps find maybe 3 or 4 people that you would really like to meet for whatever reasons. I mean, anybody from a producer, maybe the director's going to be there, maybe there's a talent you've seen someplace. But be specific and then focus on those few people, because that's what you want to do is keep it down, as opposed to Gatling gun the crowd going go out there and I'll hit something.
Right.
Try to be specific. Also, a lot of times you see there's someone said, well, this is my short, but I'm really going to make a feature film about this.
Mm-hmm.
And what you want to do is to play that down. Don't go there. If someone really likes your short, then you encourage them and then start to talk about it, and perhaps let them come up with the thought, depending on who it is, of course. This might make an interesting feature, and you go, I've thought about that.
I would follow that up with, let's say you're standing next to, your film is 10 minutes and this filmmaker's is 10 minutes. And this filmmaker considers that the whole piece.
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes is all that filmmaker needed to tell that story. And you're pitching yours basically as a commercial. This filmmaker is going to feel a little awkward screening with you. Your piece is a commercial and my piece is finished. How do we fit together? So that's something that you should follow up after the festival. If you've collected names or if you've met somebody on a panel, you can say, I don't know if you saw my film. Here's a link to it, and I just want you to know that we're excited to announce that we're now going to be working on it as a feature. Don't come to the festival letting everybody know, like, I'm just here to shop my idea. Everybody knows that everybody's pitching. Even Don and I. Mm-hmm. We want that one person to come to the festival and come up after a screen and say, you guys, I have my checkbook. Here's $20,000. You guys are doing a great job. We love you. Of course. And that's what the business is based on. But you don't want to go pitch crazy.
Mm.
And so just enjoy it and just make the most of it. Yeah, don't go pitch crazy.
See other films, too.
See as many films as you can. That is why you're here at this festival or any festival. And by the way, there are festivals out there that do have unfinished work, give money to complete your films. Those are out there. There's festivals that are specific about screenplay and have readings and competitions for that. So there's all kinds of opportunities out there. for different types of films at all kinds of levels. So, pick your festivals and just kind of be at ease with yourself, not in a hurry, not in a rush. Let it happen. Just let it happen, and some great things will happen. I've had I've had people come to my classes who went to film festivals in the middle of nowhere and screened their film, and they went because it was in the middle of nowhere, meaning maybe out in the middle of, I don't want to pick a state, but just kind of, let's just say rural. And someone saw their film, their short, and said, that was so incredible. I want you to make another one, so here's $70,000. So it does happen.
We met a woman in Wales when we had a film and we were at a festival. She now lives here. She works on our Young Filmmakers program, and it's a 10-year relationship that's been extremely good for both of us. She's been a projectionist with us. The festivals are about making sure that we continue to come together and not all sit at 4 o'clock in the morning when we can't sleep watching clips online on our phones. Film festivals and the theaters are making sure that we venture from our little caves into the big communal caves, and that we come together and say, I feel that too. I've seen that. And it's a time where filmmakers can say, this is something I'm struggling with. Is anybody with me? Does anybody hear this? And so experience all of those things. If you're going to a market, if you're going to the independent film market, or if you're going to any of the festivals that are actually markets, then you're there to pitch, and you're there to sell, for sure. Get a table, take out the ad, have the little hand puppet, get your little chocolates, get your little buttons, and your little horn, because that's the circus. Other festivals are about the celebration of what we all do and what we're all involved in.
I like that. That's awesome.
Good.
And this question might be a little bit tangential, but indie film as a whole, how do you guys think it fits into the culture of the world we live in? Because I feel like most people, when they think movies, they think just Hollywood, like the big blockbuster production, franchises for better or worse, But the independents, what impact do they have?
Well, the independents are a place where ideas come from. I mean, not that they don't come from other places, but I think the independents are looking at issues that are personal, close by, in the neighborhood, around the corner, in my county, in my country, or in this corner of my country or county, and they are all yet very human, and there are stories that, as we have mentioned, are personal, and I think that's very important for both us as human beings on this planet to have this communication available and to have all these voices out there trying to communicate. I mean, that was part of what was going on with the French New Wave, was to make the equipment small enough, put it to the hands of people so they could all be expressive and find a way to tell their stories. And lo and behold, it has miniaturized to the point where with the equipment that's out there now, we can do this. We can go out and make our stories. And they're all important because we've been telling stories to each and every one of us since we've set foot on the planet and able to draw on caves. And we still go back and look at the cave drawing and say, well, this is an interesting story.
Yeah.
And they were using the latest equipment they had at the time, which was
charcoal,
burnt sticks and blood, perhaps, and other things to give it some color. Werner Herzog has made a film about the caves in 3D, and those are 35,000-year-old drawings. And when you look at it, it's a great 3D movie, by the way, one of the best ever. You could see early man was trying to deal with perspective and then was trying to capture motion. So this was 35 years ago. So things haven't changed in terms of what we're trying to do. That's my world.
35,000 years ago. Yes.
Yeah, this is my world. I want you to see it.
Have you seen this beast? Have you felt that beast chasing you as well? And those are the stories that connect us. I think indie films tell the world that it's not about the camera. It's about the story. Because horrible acting has been captured on very expensive equipment.
That's right. That's right.
Very
Bad
true.
stories
Yeah.
have been told that have cost millions of dollars. So it's not about the equipment. It's about the heart and the story that you bring to it, and the desperation that requires you to figure out how to tell this story without the money that you thought you were going to have, without the location you really wanted, without the people that you thought were going to be there, and how you busted through those barriers to tell a story that eventually will resonate with your audience.
Last year we had several, but 5 years ago we had a film from Italy which was shot on an iPhone, and we played it on opening night. It was an iPhone 4.
Well, that's not even the one with the 4K camera.
That's right.
That's right.
And it looked great. It was an incredibly emotional piece. And last year, in speaking with sort of having to budget down, there was a young man who had a film, and Pat Capo,
All right.
who he had
Amazing.
had a plan. It kept shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking till he went, it's just me, and ended up himself and his hand puppet, because it was about a character who was suffering from Alzheimer's, and so he was making this
Video for himself.
video for himself, and he trying to figure out what it was.
And I'm going to tell you something. It was the most played behind screens film here with the volunteers. Because as new volunteers would come in, we like to play some films for them, and the volunteers who've been here for a while, they say, oh, play cheese brain?
Swiss cheese.
Play Swiss cheese brain. And people would be watching, like they do, they watch films and do things, and then pretty soon the whole room is just watching it on our screen in our living room. And it still gets me every single time. And then when I met him, I was like in awe of him. I felt like I was meeting a superstar. And he was like blown away. Because I just came up to him and I said, are you Pat Campo? And he was, and so his experience and my experience coming together on this film was so important to us and so important to him. And it was just him and a sock puppet and this film and a small camera. So it's not about the equipment. It's not about the stars. It's not about the feeling the bass, at the base of your spine as the big sound. It's about being in this dark room and everybody's head tilted the same direction. That's what it's about.
Yeah, it's not about, because you see this, we see it a lot, when you watch the film, and all of a sudden you see that red bullseye come up like this. No one cares. And really what's happening when you put, whether this is an Aeroflex or a Panavision camera or a Red or whatever it might be, that's really the ego speaking, saying, well, look what I used.
Look at the toys somebody gave me.
Look what I have, or I had to pay for, whatever the deal is. I mean, if you do it because, the Red Camera Company or Black Magic says, this is going to be our contribution, this is something we're giving to you because we believe in your project, and so therefore it'd be nice for us to have a mention. But other times it seems to be, well, this is what I used, look. Well, it's still a piece of crap. Sorry.
So now you know why he's really our secret weapon. He really is.
I can see that.
Yeah, he really is. We both bring a lot to the table. I can schedule anything. I can get people to show up. I can make sure it's a classy, fun event.
Yeah.
But when you hit play, if there's not something provocative put together in a way that creates a mystical, emotional reaction, whether it's 50 people or 250 people, if you don't really have that, you're just another hour and a half that somebody spent watching a bunch of images on a screen, which they can do it very easily at home. Mm-hmm. If you're going to get people to leave their home and they're going to come see something, it needs to be something that represents all of this that he's talking about, and with a real emotional reason to put it together. And why would we work year round on this? Because I think his vision is really extraordinary, and I love the way he puts films together, and I like seeing people walk out of a theater like shell-shocked. Really, I love that. I love it when the lights open and the lights come up and everybody's like, it takes them a second to remember that was something. I love it when you go to the cafes around and you see people talking about the film that they just saw, and it's just such an incredible experience. It really is. It's amazing what we do.
Definitely. And now, from what I'm getting from you guys, to have a great film, it's not about the equipment or like the production value, as long as there's emotional moments, good story, earned ending. But I am curious, is on the production side of it, is there like one faux pas that someone can make that'll just like be a complete deal breaker?
I think that I know what you're going to say.
Sound. Sound is a killer for independent filmmakers.
I could see that.
Sound is very difficult. Ultimately, the image is much easier because we have equipment that captures. Phones capture beautiful images, but the sound has to be there. If you have a film where the images are shaky or there may be issues with it, but you make it a style choice. You have to work with it because maybe that's the way it is. And so the images are, let's say, less than perfectly crisp. And the sound is absolutely astounding. I'll go with it because the sound is clear and I can see, and the images.
Because you're still decoding images in relationship to the sound.
Right.
Because the ear is much more complicated than the eye. The ears, we can hear all kinds of stuff around us and over us, which is why they had surround sound, and now Dolby's got these amazing new theaters with sound coming from everywhere. Because our ears are much more complicated than the eyes. The eyes, we're looking this way all the time. But the ears are doing this. Okay, what's behind me? Oh, I heard that. What's going on up there? And so if sound is great and the images might be a little shaky, that'll work. But if the images are fantastic and the texture is there and the sound sucks, well, it's awful.
People will just check out.
And
They will. They're just
very true.
check out.
And which is interesting because like film, it's a visual medium.
It is a visual medium. That's right. I mean, originally it was all visual, and sometimes they'd play a piano or something else as a background. But still, it was the visual images, and those in the days of silent, meaning dialogue free, those films, everything was communicated via images, and people loved them, and we still do. We still love the image if it's well done and well put together, meaning everyone's working together and the images are there. Turn the sound off, as Hitchcock said, and it should be perfectly clear what's happening.
But if you're going to use sound and make me struggle to hear, then I'll check out.
Right.
Another thing that Don really, really hates, and I have grown to hate, are bloopers.
Oh, yeah.
Really? Yes, because, as he says, you've created this world, and you've asked me to buy it, and I've bought into it, and now the last image you're gonna leave with me is silly, silly, silly. He said, well, why would I want to see you be, and now I swear some of the bloopers that we see, people are setting them up and they're doing, let's do something for bloopers. And I don't want to see you mess around. That's for you and your crew at your parties. I want to see that piece that you say, that's finished. That's what I want to leave with.
And honestly, I really think most of the bloopers are set up because as someone
Yes.
who's worked on film sets, it's like, you hear these things happen, people are laughing in the background. No, I'm sorry.
No,
you
don't.
mess up, you're just like, oh my God, are you actually doing this?
Exactly. Everybody's more like clamped up at that moment.
Exactly.
I do feel that a lot of the bloopers are set up. Now, we do a lot of filmmaking with kids, and that's the one thing they want to do. What's the blooper reel? What's the blooper reel? And, I say to them, the world watches you be funny and silly all the time. This is a chance for you to show the world something incredibly polished that makes me stop looking at you as like, oh, it's a 12-year-old. Makes me look at it and say, that was a 12-year-old? That's important. That's why everybody comes together on your time off with equipment that you've borrowed and your last dime, and you've Jimmy rigged the corner to look like something. That's why we've come together. Not saying, look how funny we are.
But, and then you can always, because there's no rules are always flip-floppable in the business. I mean, if you're making an American Pie 42, You know,
Yeah,
okay,
like-
slap them up there.
Then the bloopers are there. I'll
That's,
give
you
you
know,
that.
All right,
that's
all right.
that's perfectly okay. We'll stick something in that pie. That's fine.
But maybe bloopers of like Meryl Streep, where she's so in and so doing and makes something that's just so true to the characters messing up. We'll watch that because it's a chance for me to see that goddess be humanized. But if it's Joe Schmo in a movie that I've never even seen before and he's like dropped the pickle jar, I can drop my own pickle jar.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not necessarily worthy.
Yeah, bloopers. And we've sent emails to filmmakers
Yes.
saying, you've got something here, please, can you just not
Take your bloopers
take
off.
your bloopers
Mhm.
out? Right? Because you've created a world, and I'm interested in that world. And now you broke that wall between me and you and your story. A fine example, well, not a fine example, one example is the film with Peter Sellers. I can't. He ends up walking on water.
The Seasons?
Where
The
there's
Accidental
Chauncey
Gardener?
Gardner,
No, something right, yeah.
back in the 70s.
Mhm.
And you end up in the story, he's such a naive savant that he ends up walking on water. And you believe it. You see him out there walking on water. And they come back and they suddenly, you're here in a set, and now he's breaking up because he can't remember his lines, or he's having fun, he's goofing. And it's like, oh gosh.
That just hurts my heart hearing about
It
that.
does, yes.
Yeah.
So Don, when we go to the films in the theater, he stays till the very last credit, and he's always whispering things like, "Oh yeah, he worked on such and such. So yeah, well that's such and such. I mean, he knows everything." But if there's a blooper, he'll go, "Let's go," and we're gone. And it's so decisive. He just shuts the door like that. But again, if those bloopers are earned by the piece that you are doing, and it completes the gestalt of the experience of the world that you've created with moving images on film or digits or whatever, then that's fine. If it's a deserved ending.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly true.
Got it. Like you said, all rules can flip-flop.
That's right. All rules flip flop. That's right. Yeah, always, constantly.
Right. Well, listen, guys, that's about all I have. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and chat with me. This was so much fun.
Well, this was fun. This
it's
was great fun.
It's an incredible experience to know that the world speaks to us through these computers and entrusts us with their work. And I think that they know that there is an audience in Queens, and that this is the world's borough. It is the most incredibly diverse borough on the face of the planet. We have an audience for any film, really, in this borough. It's an intelligent borough, and it's crazy awesome to be in the position that we're in, is to be looking at these films.
Yeah, and just as a note, I mean, the film business started here in Queens. I mean, part of it was in Edison, New Jersey, but Kaufman Studios has been here for a long time. That's where the beginnings of Paramount. And there were other studios. Gaumont was in Flushing. So this was in the 1910. And they began here and then slowly moved, to New Jersey and then eventually to California for all that sunlight.
So as I said, the living encyclopedia of films and our secret weapon. This is our secret weapon. He's curating from that impetus, which is it's the legacy of this borough to see incredible work.
Right.
And women, Alice Blaché.
Thank you, dear.
You're welcome. Bye, Alice.
Well, guys, thank you once again,
you.
and you all thank you for tuning in. I hope you had as much fun as I did and learned something. I know I did. And if you want to learn more about the Queens World Film Festival, which you absolutely should, I'm going to have links to their website, press items down in the description below. And as a reminder, they're accepting film submissions, so indie filmmakers, get on that, follow their advice. And until next time, guys, you're watching Demo Reel.